What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Hardwood Show, talking Monday's 13-game monster NBA slate on this Monday night. Of course, we've got two NFL football games as well, so busy day in sports land, DFS land, all that good stuff. 13 games, a lot to talk about. We'll get through them all game by game, as we always do. Usual Monday crew on Draft Sheet. We got Mangone and AP. AP, tough Chiefs loss yesterday.
Oh, he brought it up. No.
It's the talk of the sports world today, the ending to that game. Pretty crazy.
I love the annual, maybe not annual, but DC, my guy DC, writing off Mahomes. I think it's actually, to be fair to you, I think it's only twice now, right?
Yeah, twice that I can remember. There might be other times in the past, but yeah. I'm sick of the Chiefs, man. They're grinding my gears this year. I don't like it. But
I hear you, and I mean you know what we all do, give each other shit and stuff. The phone was just flooded. Oh, what a pussy! Mahomes sucks. Blah blah blah. I mean, it is what it is. I've been a Chiefs fan my whole life. Nothing's gonna change. So unless Mahomes does something extremely egregious, egregious, then yeah, I will move off of him. Until then, he's my guy. So that's my only statement on that.
Yeah, the nice thing about being DFS players is, you take a tough loss like that and you have really no choice but to just move on to the next day or even the next slate, right, on to Showdown, and you just kind of got to shrug it off and keep it moving. Unlike the true laundry bros, right, Mangone, that are just like fans of one team and their team loses and it's just like irksome all week until they get to play again. We can't do that in DFS world. We gotta keep it moving.
All right, real quick. I might be joining you if they lose the next game because I think they play like the Patriots or something.
Oh.
If they lose that game, then I'm on your bandwagon. I will join.
You know all the Chiefs haters at RPS, Big T and the crew have been enjoying the carnage today for sure. Man,
he calls me at like 9 or 10 in the morning. I never get a call from Big T at 9 or 10 in the morning. So he had to get the needle in. I mean, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have answered a call from Big T at 9 in the morning, but yeah. Mangone, how was your Sunday? And your thoughts on the football slate and today's big sports action tonight as well.
Okay, I called Big T Saturday, and he's in the middle of the phone call with me, and I can tell, you can hear stuff in the background. You can tell there's stuff going on. I was surprised he picked up, and he said, "I got to take care of something. I'll call you back." And we're still waiting for that call back, Big T. We're still waiting. So that's okay. No worries. Also, Alex with Mahomes subscribed to me. Alex, here's my counter. Would you rather listen to Derek Jeter in a press conference? Like, you can't win. Like, guy shows some emotion. Like, he's clearly frustrated because the last two games, like, they ended with the refs, like, basically, like, either being involved or not being involved, so on and so forth. But to be fair, like, yeah, Tony is offside. Like, he went offside. He should have been lined up properly. There's nothing you can do. I agree, like, Mahomes should, there's nothing you can do about it. But I at least appreciate he's showing me some emotion, right, DC? You want the emotion out of me on shows instead of me yawning all the time? Like, I don't want Pat Mahomes up there just not saying anything, right? So I personally am happy with at least getting something from him.
Yeah, we got to move on to basketball, but Kadarius Toney needs to go, man. This guy is just a straight moron. I don't know. Bring the team down. I'm not a fan, never have been of Mr. Toney. But we will move on to this NBA slate. We do have a lot to talk about. As I said, 13 games. Let's dive right in. We'll go by the DraftKings order of games as we always do. First game on the slate, Miami and Charlotte. Miami favored by just 4 here, 221 total. A lot of injury news on both sides. Tyler Hero remains out for Miami. He'll be joined by Bam Adebayo, Haywood Highsmith. Will also miss for Miami, and Kyle Lowry is questionable. We've seen Miami's defense really crater without Bam Adebayo, which I think makes this game a little bit more interesting. On the Charlotte side, Mark Williams is the big news. He's doubtful. Should be Nick Richards drawing the start most likely. LaMelo Ball remains out. He's been out a few games, obviously, so we've seen prices adjust to him being gone. Let's start with this first game, AP. One of 4 games that starts in the 7 p.m. early window. Your thoughts, Charlotte and Miami?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with defensively with this Heat team, just not as good, obviously, without Bam. And, Charlotte getting 4 at home. I know no LaMelo Ball, but they still have Rozier. Brandon Miller's been really good. Bridges, Hayward. PJ Washington fills in really nicely. Like, I think 4 – like, I hate the Hornets. Like, I don't like them, but I feel like 4 points is a gift. I feel like they steal a win here. The thing that's intriguing for DFS is and I was talking to our guy Gary about this. I think even with Kyle Lowry, the Heat ran an 8-man rotation last game. So if Kyle Lowry misses, and I do believe he's a true questionable, his status is truly in question, we should get a really tight rotation. And we talk about it a lot. The Hornets are much more attractive to target when LaMelo Ball is playing because he pushes the pace significantly more than Terry Rozier does. But still, I think it's a fine spot. So Orlando Robinson, there's a lot of really good center plays. I mean, if you want to go back to him coming off a bust, you could do that in tournaments. But Nick Richards, obviously on the other side, should slide in the starting lineup. Going to be a strong play, especially with no Bam in there as well. PJ Washington, don't forget about him off of the bench. I think this is also a good Gordon Hayward spot. Not a guy I really like to play too often, but 6'4". I think this matchup's fine. I could definitely get to him. So definitely some plays here. We should see tighter rotations. I don't think it's a 13-game slate. We talk about it all the time. You don't have to fully stack anything. It's grab bits and pieces from this game and move on. That's basically how I'm going to be playing it.
Makes sense for this one, Mangone. It's a game I don't think you want to go too crazy on, but also one that you probably should just completely write off your favorite plays from this Miami-Charlotte game.
Yeah, I agree with exactly how you said it. Like, I'm not going to go crazy, but I'm also not going to just write it off completely, right? Obviously, Mark Williams doubtful with. First of all, the Heat side we can just ignore, right? I'll at least get that out of the way. I don't know if there's anyone on the Heat that I want to play, but on the Charlotte side, yeah, you have to consider some options. Obviously, if Mark Williams is not going to be in, you have to consider Nick Richards, and he is 4.6K. Not the most incredible matchup in the world. Bam Adebayo is missing. Orlando Robinson has played some better basketball, but the other thing to call out is center is loaded tonight. We are going to mention a lot of centers to discuss. Nick Richards is in the conversation. I think he's one of the better plays in this game. If you had to pick one, that would be one of the options that I would go to. But other than that, Bridges at 7.7, he's okay. I think he's a safe option, not some priority, just an okay option that last piece in fits perfectly. PJ Washington is 5'7". I think he has upside at 5'7", but again, do I want to take on that risk when there's other plays that we get to? There's more news that could fall. It could just change things. Not dying to get the PJ Washington. So for me, it's mainly looking at, I would say, Nick Richards 1, I'd say Bridges 2, Washington 3, and then Brandon Miller kind of falls in the same bucket as PJ Washington. But that's it then. Those are the only 4 that I'm really looking at from this game, and it's mainly Nick Richards.
Yeah, I think Nick Richards is the primary play in this game. But as you guys mentioned, and as we talk about often on the show, center is just – I almost feel like DraftKings need to adjust the pricing on center a little bit because it seems like most nights 2 center builds is the way to go just because there's so many good options at the position. So that's Miami and Charlotte. We'll move on to the next game, Washington Wizards at Philadelphia 76ers. Monster total in this one, sitting at 244.5. Philly favored by 12. Joel Embiid is questionable. He did go through shoot around, and I do think that line, Philly by 12, indicates that he will probably play in this game, AP. Philly is pretty healthy outside of that. And then for Washington, a little bit banged up in the backcourt, still missing DeLon Wright, Landry Shamet. But yeah, we kind of know Washington, kind of hard to trust at this point. Still, this game should be fast-paced, obviously high scoring, big total and all that. So I think a more appealing game here than the first one. Talk to us, AP, Washington and Philadelphia.
Yeah, I have 2 studs that I want to get overweight tonight, for sure. One of them, Joel Embiid. We saw what happened last time. I'm not surprised that Daniel Gafford's out. Doesn't want to have to match up against Embiid. I believe it was this game last time they faced 2 games ago, and Gafford got hurt mid-game. And one, Gafford's not like a good defender or anything like that. I mean, he's an okay rim protector, like can block shots and stuff. But as far as like actually spotting up against another big like Embiid, no chance at all. But when he went out, they were like rotating Gallinari. Like they had no one. They had absolutely no one. Embiid got whatever he wanted. He put up an almost 80 piece. It was 19 for 29 from the field. 13 rebounds, 50 points. We've talked about it so many different times. Like these studs in matchups like this one, I feel like they literally are almost, I'm not going to say like padding their stats, but kind of, it like feels like that. Like they know it's an easy matchup. They know that they have to put up a big number, and I think Embiid's going to do that tonight. So how do I handle the situation? I'm being aggressive with this projection. I mean, I'm bumping it 5, 6, 7 times, or 5, 6, 7 points up from where the industry projection's at, because. And I haven't ran any builds yet. We obviously have a lot of content going on for the slate, but it just, whenever you get these slates where there's some decent mid-tier options or whatever, or like tonight, like Mangone said, a lot of center options. Embiid could fall kind of under the radar there. So Embiid definitely going to be someone that I'm high on. You could go to Maxey if you want, but again, those are kind of the tougher plays on this slate since we have so many different options. And then the Wizards, I don't know. Like, I do think Tyus Jones is fine as like a tournament play. His rotation has sucked, but they went to him and they gave him 31 minutes in this matchup last time. He looked really good running the offense in favor, obviously, of Jordan Poole. And I think they're going to need him here as well. But the other problem with Tyus Jones is I do think Daniel Gafford being out is a hit. If you think of Tyus Jones, a traditional point guard type, really, thrives off of the distribution role, and he's not going to have Gafford, which, it would be a tough matchup with Gafford anyway, but he's not going to have that pick and roll guy. So Tyus Jones, fine. Not too excited about anyone else on the Wizards side.
Yeah, this matchup's so good for Embiid, Mangone, that I kind of feel like Embiid, if it's at all questionable, he's like, get me in there, right? I mean, I put up 50 real points against him last time out. Probably wants to do something similar, so I do expect him to play. I do expect him to smash. Obviously, you can't fit everybody. We got Joker on the slate as well. I personally prefer Embiid tonight, but it's always close. So, yeah, Philadelphia, Washington. What do you see here, Mangone?
Yeah, on one of the recent slates last week, like it was like a loaded center slate, and I wanted Embiid, right? And at the end of the night, I remember I made adjustments, and like at one point I had 10% Embiid, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to have some and make sure I didn't like miss out on it. And then all of a sudden I had like 2%. It was just like when I made like reruns and adjustments, and like I was tilted. That's not happening tonight. I will make sure, like one of the first things I'm doing when I go into Saber, I'm at least putting in like some min to make sure he's in there. And then I can easily take the min off later on when I make the final run and then just have the projection adjusted up, right? I'm just making sure I don't mess that up. I'm going to say that right now, because if he's in, I want exposure to Embiid. This matchup is an incredible matchup. I am already getting some Embiid, but you just never know what kind of news is going to hit to mess it up. But Embiid, really good spend-up option today. I think you have to like Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari as center options on the opposite side. They're just cheap values that are going to get run here in this spot that I'm not going to ignore. So I do think overall you got to like them. I think they're going to be good values that we should be going to on this slate. Other than that, though, like Kyle Kuzma, like I mentioned him as in, if you play him, you better probably go like an Embiid, right? Like I would assume like that would be one thing to call out. Like if Kyle Kuzma absolutely nukes, you probably need Embiid with him, just because that means Embiid got his full run and he probably went off. We talked about that the other slate when these two played against each other. So I don't think that's a bad route to think about. On this slate, Tobias Harris at 6'8", Denny Obvious 6'3". I think I'll pass on those options. Poole 6'5", that sounds egregious. Maxey at 9'2", when there's other plays that I can just get to. I understand it's a Washington matchup. So is Maxey the worst tournament play? No, but there's better plays. So for me, it's really just looking at the big men between Embiid, Mike Muscala as a value, and Danilo Gallinari, who you can plug into your power forward or center position.
Do we know for sure who's going to start for Gafford tonight? I don't think we know, do we?
I feel pretty confident it's Muscala. And then the reason why Gallinari makes sense, at times you're going to see them go with more of the smaller lineup. And if the Wizards are losing, you could make a case they go with Gallinari at the 5, and then they just chuck it up and shoot threes the whole time, right? Now that'd be just free points for Embiid in the paint, and they'll try and do their best to double them.
They don't have anybody. Yeah, I don't know. They're going to have to try to double Embiid.
It has to be Muscala. Like, they need size. Like, or Embiid's going for that, 50-20 game.
Yeah, and if Muscala's in trouble, this is why I'm telling you, Gallinari will play small ball lineups, and I'm not saying it's smart or going to work, but it's all they have. And when you're down 25, what are you going to do? Run ISOs in the post with like Gallinari or some other like big man to try and attack Embiid? It's just stupid. You just space and pace it and try your best to run them off the floor and make your threes.
Yeah, I just don't see Washington slowing down Embiid and Philly at all because, Philly's got plenty of shooters too. You can't just double Embiid. They'll beat you from three if you try to do that. So tough spot here for Washington. I do expect Philadelphia to play well. And Embiid seems like a guy you want to be at least at the field with tonight, if not significantly over. We'll be surprised if he doesn't have a big game in this one. Let's get to the next game on the slate. Much lower total in this one. Cleveland and Orlando sitting at 227. Orlando slight favorites, 1.5-point favorites at home here. The Cavaliers remain a little bit banged up, still missing Karis LeVert and Evan Mobley, and then Wendell Carter remains out. I think he's close to coming back for Orlando, but out tonight. And then Jalen Suggs is the one that we're waiting on. He is questionable after missing at least the last game. AP, back to you. Orlando, Cleveland, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I wanted to fire an underbet on this game. I think this game's going to be pretty boring. I thought I made a really nice move when you looked at, in hindsight, when you looked at ownership last game. Evan Mobley ended up getting ruled out, and it was after it was definitely after the first few games locked. I went heavy Jared Allen, and he was like 8 or 9%. I'm like, okay, nice. No Mobley. I'm over on Allen. The dude plays like 7 minutes in the first half, 8 minutes. He finished the game with 25 minutes, but I was like, what is going on with this rotation? It had to be a matchup thing. They had Dean Wade actually playing good defense. I think they had him on Jimmy Butler. This is the game. I'll keep it nice and easy. We have a lot to talk about, obviously, on the slate. I am full fading this game. I honestly don't think I'll have any pieces on either side. So I'm expecting more of a defensive battle. I like the Magic to win. But I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
Yeah, Cleveland did some weird stuff with the rotation last game with the same players out that are out tonight. They played 11 guys, and like you said, AP, Jared Allen pretty much got benched in the first half. It wasn't even foul trouble. They just didn't use him. Played Tristan Thompson for 10 minutes. Weird situation there. Mangone, this one's, I think, one that I'm mostly going to avoid. But your thoughts, Cleveland and Orlando?
Yeah, I'm not super excited about this game. Trying to see if there's anything I missed, but when I was looking, I didn't think it made that much sense to really target this game. So for me, 13 games later, let's just keep moving along. I don't think there's much to talk about.
All right, we'll move on to Indiana and Detroit. Much bigger total in this one, 247. We see this obviously with Indiana all the time, and Detroit. I don't think they won a game over the weekend, did they? No, they did not. Detroit's losing streak continues. It's
been a while.
18 or 19, whatever it is. Brutal stuff for Detroit. They are at home here. 7.5-point dogs. Indiana obviously coming off the in-season tournament run to the final where they lost to the Lakers. So this one, right, they haven't played a normal game in over a week, I believe. So a little bit different for Indiana here. Obviously expect them to bounce back from that loss. This seems like a pretty smash spot for Indiana. AP, I'm a little worried about them kind of coming out flat after playing in the in-season tournament final and losing that game. Now they go to Detroit, right? It's just not a marquee game at all. But on paper, at least, looks like an incredible spot for Halliburton. Detroit can't defend pick-and-roll ball handlers at all, and he's just been incredible this year. But Indiana, Detroit, talk to us, AP.
Yeah, I am. I love the Pacers. Been a Pacers stan for this season mainly, but Tyrese Halliburton, incredible. But this is the NBA. These are all professional players, and the Pistons in shambles right now. But if there was ever a spot for them to take advantage, come prepared, it is this one, because you have to think spending a weekend in Vegas. I mean, how many days were they in Vegas? Like 4 or 5? And they all got cash. They're all padded their pockets a little bit. I think this is such a sneaky spot for the Pistons. I think, obviously been talking about Pacers overs a lot. I wouldn't touch it here because I think, if you're Detroit, take a piece out of what the Lakers have been doing to these guards. They did it to Devin Booker. They just pick them up at half court and they absolutely blitz them. It's what they did to Halliburton. And they have, the lineup tonight, they're almost forced to play a lineup that could match up better with this Pacers team with Jaden Ivey, Hayes, 2 decent defenders. And then it comes down to, I think Bojan, this is his spot as a veteran on this team. I think he takes over. I think he has a really big game tonight. I actually just listed him as a core play on the heat map. At 6'5", I think he falls into kind of no man's land. And he's a guy I just want to get overweight on in basically flag plant on the slate. That's what I'm going to be doing here. Obviously, the Pacers, a team that we can attack from any position. But we like bigs against them, too. We want to wait for the starting lineup. If they start James Wiseman, I'm going to be very worried about my bet because this is the team that we cannot take seriously at all. If they start Isaiah Stewart, which is who I think they start at the 5, I feel much better about this spot. The other thing that they could do, too, is Oscar Thompson, pretty good defender. They could rotate him back into the starting lineup. So another thing to just keep an eye on, another good defender that they could put on Halliburton. So I like the Pistons side of money line in this one, kind of banking on a little bit of a hangover. And in DFS, like Halliburton, there's other studs that I'd rather spend up for, even though Detroit has been terrible defensively. You can attack them from any position. But I honestly think this is like one of those spots where they come out flat. Rick Carlisle is all frustrated. And we know what happens with Rick Carlisle when it's not going his way early. He's basically like Pop. I could just see him benching the whole starting unit, bringing in TJ McConnell, Isaiah Jackson. And so I'm not saying get crazy or anything like that, but I am working in some of these bench pieces or at least making them available in my pool. Not obviously there's so many elite plays on the slate. Don't go crazy with them, but that's kind of how I'm playing this game. So the Pistons are bad, but this is their spot, in my opinion, to steal a win. And I'm going to be heavier on their side in DFS formats tonight.
Yeah, it's hard to have much faith in the Pistons in any capacity. But I do think, Mangone, that it seems obvious what they should do, right? Start Isaiah Stewart at the 5 with how fast Indiana plays. I think they'd be kind of nuts to have Stewart and Wiseman both out there. But again, it's the Pistons. They do stupid shit all the time. I do think potentially, though, if Stewart does start at the 5, and his only backup at that point is James Wiseman, who clearly Detroit's not a fan of, coaching staff doesn't want to play him. You could, I know Stewart's been bad recently, you could get a minute ceiling game out of him. You have to assume Detroit is getting kind of desperate to win a game at this point. So I do think, listen, if the Detroit starters play well, this could be a game where, coach is go win this game for us. Get us off the schneid. And it's a really, really fast-paced game, obviously, against the Pacers. So I kind of think the Detroit side is a little bit sneaky here. It's still Detroit, and, you don't feel comfortable with it. But this is a great, great spot. And, yeah, I wonder if any of the people, any of the players, young kid in Vegas, you're 24 years old. You get, all the money from the play-in tournament. You're in Vegas, a couple days off. I wonder if anyone gambled all the in-season tournament winnings away, plus more, and it ended up being a net negative for him being stuck in Vegas. But anyway, Mangone, your thoughts, Detroit and Indiana.
Yeah, someone definitely ended up negative. I don't know who, but I'll bet what someone did for sure. I'm sure it was a lot of fun for those guys, and I'm sure it was a lot of fun for the Pacers being away, right? Now, could we see the hangover game? Yeah, I think we could. I don't know if we will, but I think we could. It's possible. One thing to talk about too, the Pacers are a team that we just like to target in general. If you did see, Bagley out in this spot, I agree, DC. Could you get the Stewart game? Yes. One thing to note, put him at the power forward position, not the center. I think that would be very important when building your lineup. So I just don't think you'd want to waste a center spot on that. I do think, yes, I think Stewart could get that crazy minute ceiling, but I don't know, man. The Pistons play everyone. They could easily play Kevin Knox the 5 at times against Obi Toppin, and I wouldn't be surprised if Obi Toppin was at the 5 going heads up against Kevin Knox. It sounds stupid, but I'm just saying, like, it wouldn't surprise me. The Pistons, they play some really weird lineups. So overall, I'm not super excited about too many Pistons. It's really, hey, maybe the Stewart thing, like you said, in tournaments. I think Bogdanovich has to be in the conversation at 6.5K. He had that huge ceiling game followed up by a game against Orlando where he wasn't as great. Like, listen, Orlando is not an ideal matchup. They did not do great in that game. They lost by 30. They could easily be in this game, and it could be a back and forth where it's a lot of scoring, and Bogdanovich would be a part of it. I believe this is a Bogdanovich revenge game, too, if you want to go that angle. I think he played a little bit with the Pacers. I can't remember. These guys move around the league so much. But Bogdanovich is in the conversation for me. He's probably my favorite play in this game. And then Pacers side of the ball, we do like to typically target Detroit. But on this slate, it just seems like all these guys are priced up for kind of like, some of the other situations they were in. And who knows how deep Carlisle goes in the rotation tonight. He might thin out the minutes a little bit more just because they were playing all those bigger games. So I'm out on the Pacers. It's really just Bogdanovich, maybe Stewart, and then move on.
I haven't looked at your bets today, AP. You hitting the Detroit money line here?
Yeah. I mean, just not like a big bet or anything like that. I mean, like a half unit bet. So, and then I cooked up a little parlay. So, I mean, after yesterday, I hit an obviously JBC crushed yesterday and hammered those bets. Feeling a little fiery. So we'll see. I mean, the Pistons have been horrendous. I'm fully betting on the hangover here, and they could come out and absolutely wipe them off the court. That would not surprise me at all. So. I just think it's an interesting spot where, I mean, TJ McConnell's the one guy that he probably didn't go out and party. He probably went to bed at 9, 10 o'clock and got a good night rest. And maybe he cooks tonight. Who knows?
Poor TJ. Just basing your gambling appearances on his appearance. So tough spot for TJ. Let's go to Denver and Atlanta. We're into the 7:30 Eastern time window here. Denver favored by 2.5 on the road in Atlanta, 242 total. News and notes, not a ton. Jamal Murray expected to be in, and DeAndre Hunter may make his return. It looks like for the he hasn't been out. It's been Johnson that's out. He's still out. So we'll see with Hunter if he's out. It will be thinner on the wings for the Atlanta Hawks. Back to AP, Atlanta, Denver. What do you see?
Yeah, so Hawks getting 3 points at home. Great bigs against this Hawks team as one of the best flow chart spots. So, and Jokic is under 12K. I like the Nuggets right now. They're on a 3 or 4 game skid. They need to show up and have a big night. And usually when that happens, it's because of Nikola Jokic, 2-time MVP. And the problem is there's so many good center plays. So I really want to try and rotate in Embiid and Jokic plus one of these values. And so I'm going to go away from double center value builds. And I'm going to create a rule. And I don't do this too often, but I'm not maxing tonight. There's so much going on. I think I'm running 50 to 75. And with that, I want to make sure a Nick Richards is matched with an Embiid and then a Jokic, or a Hartenstein and Embiid and Jokic instead of the Hartenstein and Richards. So I want to make sure that I have upside at that center position. I'm going to have a ton of double center builds with Embiid and Jokic. And then there's one other center that I really like tonight too in the upper mid-tier range. On the Hawks side, though, Trae Young's 10-1. That's just I would rather try to find another, 1,700 for Luka if I could. Or spin down. So I'm not going to be going to anyone on the Hawks side. They're going to be a fade for me. They're getting healthy. I think they push the Nuggets tonight and steal a win at home.
Yeah, I think if Hunter misses out, Bogdanovich, Saddiq Bey, a little bit interesting, Mangone, but they're priced up. I mean, Bogdanovich 6,800, Saddiq Bey now 6,300, and really no interest in them at all if Hunter ends up playing. What do you see, Mangone, from Atlanta and Denver tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. With AP, the Jokic contrarian good spend that you get to. It's harder on this slate for sure. one thing I would call out that I don't mind is since we have so many cheap centers today, right? We are forced to kind of spend at other positions. And we have some cheap guard values as well, where it kind of forces us to spend a little bit more, I think, at the forward position at times. And because of that, sometimes you just get guys that you don't expect. And one guy I didn't expect to pop as much as he is Michael Porter Jr. And listen, he's playing in a Hawks matchup. So that's a huge positive, right? Atlanta is one of those teams. You look at every single slate. Like recently, I remember seeing a slate and I was like, oh, I'm getting more Mikal Bridges than I thought. Well, he's playing Atlanta and we just need priced up forwards. And I think Michael Porter Jr. is actually a pretty good play here in this spot. So I'll be interested in him as a spend. I think, yes, Jokic is fine, but I just think I prefer Embiid to Jokic. Both are good options, though. So then the Hawks side of the ball, we don't typically target Denver. If Hunter happened to miss, you could make the case for some of these options to maybe pop. But the only counter I'll have is because we had Trae Young out recently, Sadiq Bey's price has gone up. He is 6.3. Bogdanovich is 6.8. Like, I just don't know if these guys are going to pop as much with them being ruled out. I think that's the one worry that I have. Yes, Jalen Johnson is ruled out. I think maybe Sadiq Bey is the one guy you'd go to because, again, I don't know if Bogdanovich really gets that run. I think it's more Bey just kind of solidifying those minutes up a bit. So maybe it's Bey at 6.3, but again, I'm going to look at Bey at 6.3 and compare it to some of these other options. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe I'd rather have $700 to go out for Michael Porter Jr.
Yeah, I think Bey will have a solid game if Hunter's out, but I just worry how much upside does he really have is my concern with him. 6,300, you need, 35, hopefully 40 out of that price of a player. So, yeah, I totally get that. Let's move on to Toronto, New York. I think a really interesting game here. We've seen New York make some changes to their starting lineup. Quentin Grimes was complaining in the press, and he gets benched the next day from Thibodeau. That's how Mr. Thibodeau works. And then they lose Mitchell Robinson last game, ankle injury. He's going to be out a couple months. I assume it'll be Isaiah Hartenstein that gets the start here. AP, he's played he and Mitchell Robinson just sub in and out for each other like every single time, right? And pretty much take up all the center minutes for New York. So it is a pretty intriguing spot for Hartenstein, I think. We'll see what New York does with their starting lineup in general. Brunson was questionable earlier. Looks like he's probable to play at this point. And then Emmanuel Quickly is questionable as well. So, yeah, kind of a lot going on for New York. Toronto looks like they are pretty much healthy and good to go for this game. Talk to us, New York and Toronto, AP.
Yeah, so it should be Hartenstein because he started the second half of this last game when he started over Mitch Robinson. But I mean, look, the Mitch Robinson got hurt. Yeah, it has to be Hartenstein. The other guy that they have is Jericho Sims, but we haven't seen much of him at all. So I'm working under the assumption that it's Hartenstein. Even if it's not, I'm still working under the assumption that he's going to get good run here, and he's 4'6". They're going to need some size. He's a guy that can, look, even in this last matchup against Boston, 29 minutes, low usage rate, but he was an absolute beast on the boards. So he's going to, again, we talked about it, center is loaded. He's going to be one of those key building blocks that you could build around. It just becomes, do you play, him? Do you play Yurtseven? Do you play Nick Richards? Some people might jam in both, value centers. And that's why I want to prioritize the Embiid or the Jokic with one of those guys. And that's just going to be kind of one of my staple strategies on this slate versus jamming in both those values. Just to make sure we lock in those big games. Because I just don't see Embiid or Jokic failing at, and they're priced very fairly. So outside of that, the other guy Julius Randle could go overlooked. And he's just a guy that should have more rebounding upside as well, you'd think. So I have some interest. And then we talk about all the time, and I stand by this rule. It's the one rule that I keep: Pascal Siakam or Scotty Barnes. It's I don't know if we have a slate yet this season where both have gone off. But with that being said, I don't like attacking the Knicks. I don't even like attacking them on a 6 or 7 game slate. We have 13 games tonight. There's a lot of better options. So I highly doubt I'll have too much exposure to the Raptors side.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Raptors side. The Knicks side, clearly, I think the more interesting one. Mangone center's loaded. Hartenstein, I do think needs to be in the conversation, but man, he is like extremely low usage in terms of scoring actual points. And I do think AP mentioned him, but Julius Randle potentially plays the 5 when Hartenstein is off the court. I think that's possible. So this could be a big minutes game for Julius Randle. We've seen Thibodeau do it before, and he's even better. Randle is when he gets minutes at the 5. Again, maybe it's Sims who gets the backup, but I do think there's a definite possibility that Randle. Yeah, go ahead, AP.
Just real quick. So there was a note that they could randomly spot start Jericho Sims. So I just want to throw that out there. I still stand by the Hartenstein take though.
It's weird when they do that. Like Sims is like playing like not at all, just like not at all each time, and then goes into the starting lineup. I bet it'll be Hartenstein, but we'll see. You never know. Mangone, your thoughts here? Toronto and New York.
Yeah, I'm actually in the camp that Sims does start, and it's not necessarily just like that tweet that Stephen Bondi was popped out there on Twitter, but like I think it makes sense to maybe spot start Sims because they have a lot of length down low. You could also argue you don't really want to take Hartenstein completely out of his role. When you take Hartenstein out of that role, one, that could hurt some of the usage and some of the flow, and two, what you can do is you can just spot start Sims and then just play Hartenstein more minutes than normal, and you could just let him close. So I think it's fine to start Sims if you want to. Like Hartenstein just takes away a lot of usage from guys like Brunson and Randle, where you just want to stagger it a little bit. So I could see him stagger it. I could also see Sims play phenomenal. You just ride Sims out. And I could see Sims play absolutely terrible. He just doesn't get as much run. And Tom Thibodeau, if Sims is in there and he's playing like a clown, Tom Thibodeau is going to be like, screw this. You're done for the day. And he's going to like run these guys into the ground. They could also go Julius Randle at the 5 for like the final 18 minutes of the game, and then just play more with their like wings, right? With like the DiVincenzo's, the Harts, like all those guys, the Quickly's. Like obviously Quickly is questionable too, but the point I'm getting at is this center spot feels a little thinner than others when it comes to these options. Now, to be fair to a play like Hartenstein is a very good fantasy producer. I mean, he's 4.6K, and the amount of production he can do, and he did in those 29 minutes last game, was incredible. So I think Hartenstein and Sims, they're both in play. You just have to figure out how you want to play it. Like they're both in the conversation. You just have to decide how you're going to play it out. For me, I want to be lower on Sims than the field. And I think I just want to be slightly higher on Hartenstein. I don't want to be like egregiously just because I think there's a lot of good center options. And I don't think as many people are going to Hartenstein as you would think, especially if we get the news that Sims is starting. And I kind of hope we get the news that Sims is starting. Keep in mind, though, he is 3K. But if it's between Sims and like Mike Muscala, I think I lean Mike Muscala if I had to pick. But again, not amazing options. They're both 3K, and center's really, really loaded tonight. So that's kind of how I'm handling that. I'd say Julius Randle, I typically don't like to play him, but I can't ignore what I'm staring at with this situation. So Julius Randle will be in the conversation today for sure. And on the Raptors side of the ball, there's really nothing. 13-game slate. I don't want to waste my money on Raptors.
Yeah, Alex, I was not aware of Isaiah Hartenstein's wife, but I did look it up due to your suggestion. And Mr. Hartenstein, he's doing all right for himself. I guess it's good to be an NBA player.
Definitely getting it done off the court.
Even if you're coming off the bench, backing up Jericho Sims, Isaiah Hartenstein, he's doing all right. So we'll see.
Cue up the Shaquille O'Neal. I'm sorry, I didn't understand your game or whatever it is. I wasn't familiar with your game, Isaiah Hartenstein. Not many people were familiar with it. I will say
we all just bump his projection a little. give him an extra bump.
I will say I was familiar with it. I don't know if you ever saw the classic picture of the Knicks with all their wives. It's a really funny picture on Twitter of all. And
I remember that was a good one. That was definitely a good one.
Yeah, I'll need to look that one up.
Marvin Bagley ruled out.
Okay, yeah. So we'll see what Detroit does with the starting lineup there with Bagley out. All right, being there, calm down in the chat. Let's go to Dallas and Memphis next. Big news in this one, obviously, with Kyrie Irving out. He's joined by Grant Williams. Maxi Kleber remains out. And then, Josh Green. And I think that's it for Dallas. That's it. I mean, that's like 3 big rotation pieces for them. So, yeah, we kind of know what to expect here. AP from Luka should be a monster game. Been pretty damn good in general since having the kid. The studs look like they're in pretty incredible spots. Luka, Joker, and Embiid. Dallas favored by 1.5 on the road in Memphis. 227 total. Looks like Memphis more or less a full go for this game, at least compared to what they have been recently. Your thoughts, AP, Memphis and Dallas?
Yeah, I mean, these spots, it's like Luka always like isn't too high owned either. And we have value on the slate as well. I think he's a core play guy. It seems like ever since he had that kid, he's had a triple-double by halftime. The matches have been easy, but we think of like Memphis as this team that's good defensively. No. They were like in previous years. Not the case at all this year. I feel like people are just thinking that they're good defensively because historically they have been, but they're starting Derrick Rose most likely. I mean, not a good defender. So I think this is a really nice spot for Luka. Dallas only favored by 1. Game should stay close. Should see a tighter rotation. Tim Hardaway Jr. off the bench. Dante Exum has played really well in his role, but the price has adjusted now. Seth Curry should get the start. He's going to make for a fine value, but for me, it's all Luka. He's another one of those guys. So it's this isn't anything crazy, but ownership is really driven by projections, optimizers, and the tools that we have. And with a lot of decent, mid-tier plays on the slate, I just want to be aggressive with these studs. So Luka, a guy that I'm going to be very aggressive with on his projection, along with Jokic and Embiid. Love Luka in this spot. The other thing too is we can definitely attack this Mavs team. So if it stays close, Desmond Bane would be the main guy on the other side. I still I'm a little cautious because when I look at my builds, I'm just thinking from a big picture, and I haven't seen anything yet. But if you go like a 1 stud plus a Bane who's in that upper mid tier range, you're not going to be able to get another stud for sure. I have a feeling I'm going to like kind of the double stud route a little bit better. So I think I'm going to end up under on Bane, but I would definitely not talk anyone off of him because the guy's been incredible, and the matchup here is really good.
Yeah, Memphis just doesn't really have anything to deal with ball handlers, right? Like no Ja Morant, and then when Marcus Smart goes down, obviously in past years they've had Dylan Brooks to kind of play that, take the other team's lead scorer. Now it's like Derrick Rose, Desmond Bane, can't keep up, can't stay in front of guys like Luka, and they just don't have a lot. So yeah, I think this is an incredible spot for Luka, Mangone. Kind of goes without saying. I mean, if you can get him in there, you do so, right, against Memphis. I think the interesting player in this one to me is Dante Exum, coming off a really big game for him. Put up 41 fantasy points in 33 minutes against Portland. Did shoot the ball really well in that game. But if you look at some of the passing stuff, potential assists, he was clearly the kind of the second guy behind Luka after Kyrie went down, and really being praised a lot by the coaching staff as well. Kind of seems like they've got some faith in Dante Exum. Now he is up to 5,700, but you can play him at small forward. I'm interested in Exum tonight, but let's start to you, Mangone, Dallas, and Memphis.
Yeah, I think you got to like Dante Exum in this spot. I mean, keep in mind, this guy was like a high pick and was supposed to be something, and then he went over to the EuroLeague and got better and improved. And I think Dante Exum is definitely worth taking a shot on, even at 5.7K. It seems crazy, but I am interested in him. He's guard and forward eligible. Gets a spot against Memphis where we're not scared of this Memphis defense at all. It's an easy spot to attack. So, I think Dante Exum in play. Luka is in play too with all the value that we have. And no Kyrie Irving. I mean, listen, we have to like Luka. It's going to be a great spot for him against Memphis. So those are 2 options I'm interested in. Also, I think you could make a case with the state of the Memphis Grizzlies, right? Listen, there's not a lot of good players there. I mean, we're talking about Derrick Rose, only able to get like that 20-ish minutes because of how bad it is there. I think that puts Desmond Bane firmly in tournament conversation because of his ceiling. And against this Mavs team, he could certainly go for a huge game. So I think his ceiling is worth considering at 8.7. And same with Jaren Jackson at 7.8. I do feel confident this is not a bad Jaren Jackson Jr. foul spot. The one thing you do have to worry about, Luka's really good at drawing fouls. So maybe I should retract that statement a little bit. But just big man wise, I'm not as worried about the fouls being there. So hopefully Luka doesn't trick him into getting into some fouls. And so that's really it for me in this game. It's really focusing on that Mavs side of the ball, specifically with Luka and Exum. I think they're really strong plays that you're going to want to have exposure to. And one last thing to note, DC, if you haven't seen Tommy DeVito's attire for tonight's game, you got to check out the fit. The man is in like black leather pants and like a pink fuzzy like top. I can't even explain it. So Tommy DeVito, he doesn't care. The swag is high for Tommy.
Listen, the last time we had a swag narrative, Zeke Elliott coming in with the mink coat and goes off for 72 receiving yards. Flashback from
that was a fun slate, DC. I enjoyed it. So I will sign up for some. I'll sign up for some Tommy DeVito tonight in Showdown, I guess.
Yeah, fun 2-game slate. Reminds me of the NFL. Reminds me of the old school primetime slates. I like the 2-3 game NFL slates. So looking forward to that. We'll keep it basketball for now, though. Utah OKC, the next game that we will talk about in this 8 p.m. Eastern time window. 234.5 total in this one. OKC favored by 12.5. Lots of injuries for Utah in particular. Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, and both going to miss, and then John Collins is questionable. So Utah potentially very depleted along the front line. Certainly an interesting talking point there. And then for OKC, mostly healthy, other than Lou Dort will miss out, who's a really good defender, plays big minutes, obviously, for OKC. So, yeah, interesting game here, I think. AP, big total, 234. Your thoughts, Utah and OKC?
Yeah, I mean, OKC heavy favorites here, but down a good defender in Lou Dort. Yeah. It had me considering the over in this game. Still have a slight lean towards it. I mean, on the OKC side, I feel confident, and it's like the Jazz side is tougher because the rotations are just terrible. But they got Jordan Clarkson's in. I know he sat out a few games, but I think we see points here, and like Josh Giddey at his price. I mean, really, like with how deep their rotation is, that's been hindering him just a little bit. With a few pieces out, maybe he gets more run. And if he does, I mean, he could absolutely smash his price tag here. So at 5'8", I think Giddey's fine. Jalen Williams, the other guy that I have interest in. I'm showing Cason Wallace potentially starting. But look, they could really go in so many different directions. Yeah. Isaiah Joe has been solid for them off the bench. Aaron Wiggins, Conrich Williams. There's a lot of different ways that they could go. I mean, we've even seen like my guy Davis Bertans get in there at times and stroke some threes. This dude against the Mavericks, little hashtag revenge. It was Glock that had texted me when it was going down. Comes in, plays like 9 minutes and strokes like 3 or 4 threes. So you love to see it. Not in play tonight, obviously, but I just had to throw that out there. So for me, it's Josh Giddey, it's Jalen Williams on the Thunder side, and I haven't been playing. Like, you're at 7. I mean, he's fine, but they're still going to rotate him and Kelly Olynyk. So I'm not, like, sitting here fading Yurt 7. He's going to be, like, a really good play on the slate. But don't be surprised if it's, like, ends up being, like, Kelly Olynyk that ends up going off, So don't be afraid to rotate those two guys in with one of the studs that we talked about.
Makes sense, Mangone. This is a really good spot for SGA to go off. No Lou Dort, I think, helps the pace and just the overall game environment. And then Utah, another team that's just getting crushed by lead ball handlers and missing Walker Kessler, potentially John Collins, Lauri Markkanen. Not a lot of rim protection either, right? And SGA is a guy that scores a ton at the rim in general. But it's hard to get to him, man, with Luka and Embiid and Joker on the slate. I think he's going to fall way under the radar. So, yeah, SGA is someone I'm looking at as a tournament play. Anyone you're looking at in this game, Mangone?
Yeah, definitely Josh Giddey. I think Josh Giddey's a strong play on this slate. SGA, I just have trouble getting to because, like, I don't know. I just want exposure to some of those other point guards and other ones we haven't discussed yet. So I understand it, DC. Like, I'm not going to go out and if someone in the Discord said, "Do you think SGA is a good play?" I wouldn't say no, right? I'm just not getting to him today as much. So it is what it is. Isaiah Joe is an interesting value here that I'm not going to ignore. Probably off the bench, but listen, I mean, this is one of those spots where I could see OKC just destroying Utah, and I could see Isaiah Joe getting that run that everyone's tilted about. I know my guy Glock. He gets upset with me and says that I get away with it when I play some of these bench guys, and I might try and get away with it. Isaiah Joe today. I know he's a little bit chalky, but I don't think he's the worst play. Agree. I think Wallace too, another option off the bench that I'm going to consider for sure. So definitely like some of the cheaper OKC options here. I don't like any of the Utah options. I just don't know who to play. Like, I don't know what the coach is going to do. I mean, I had a sweat the other night, and I had Chris Dunn and I had Keontae George on two separate teams. And I remember I was talking with Bobby about it, and I was like, I think I'm going to get some Chris Dunn blowout. And you know what? I didn't. I got Keontae George blowout run, Walker Kessler, and like some other starter was in there. And like me and Bobby were confused, but I was like, well, I just needed one of them. I didn't care. I just didn't want both sitting. I just wanted to at least get one chance to kind of climb the leaderboards. And point is, I don't know what they're doing in Utah, and I don't think the coach knows what they're doing because the coach even said, that was a masterful piece of shit. Like, he literally said it. And this team is bad right now. They're too priced up. On a 13-game slate, it's a giant fee.
I agree with you. Utah, just not a team you want to mess with in general. And if you just faded Utah the entire year, regardless of, matchup or who's been in or out, like you probably ended up pretty good for the most part. So that probably is a decent way to go on a 13-game slate. But we will keep it moving to the next game in this 8 p.m. window. It is Minnesota and New Orleans. Pelicans actually favored in this game at home by 3.5, 223 total. Do you think that line AP possibly indicates that Anthony Edwards will sit this one out? He missed a couple games and came back, played 37 minutes, and then the next game against Memphis went out after just 4 minutes. So it does seem like maybe they'll give him some time to get healthier. But Minnesota they've been awesome in general. They also might be without Jaden McDaniels, so possibly a hit to their very strong defense on the year. Pelicans mostly healthy for this one. Over to UAP. Obviously, a lot depends on the Wolves news, but what do you see Minnesota and the Pelicans?
Yeah, I mean, the spread kind of indicates that Anthony Edwards likely out, but obviously we don't have that news. And the Pelicans got absolutely embarrassed by the Lakers, like absolutely embarrassed. Zion looks so big. Like, he needs to get out of New Orleans. The food is too good down there. Like, all the NBA radio I listen to, like, and this is coming from like former players and stuff. They're just like, the dude is fat. Like, he's fat and just out of shape, and he got exposed against the Lakers. So
he also seems like a fellow who might enjoy the things that Vegas has to offer. I don't know. Just to
exactly.
I didn't get to watch that game, AP. Like, did he really, like, I tried to look up videos. Was he really looking that fat? Like, it was so bad.
He looks sluggish, man. He looks like DC, you might be onto something. Like with what was the lady's name? Mariah Mills or whatever. I mean, with that whole deal, I mean, in Vegas, like multiple nights, you know that he was, it was going down for Mr. Zion. So he was getting his cake and eating it too, as they say. If you think that Anthony Edwards plays, that I would hammer that. But the other thing too is it could be a nice situation where the Pelicans bounce back. Obviously, like top to bottom, they're a good team. Their potential is enormous this season. Yeah. It really comes down to Zion buying in because he just complements the other pieces so nicely. They have a great defender in Herb Jones. But for DFS purposes tonight, I don't really have any interest in this game. So I guess if Anthony Edwards, maybe it's one of those news situations because like if Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, like if all of those guys got ruled out, then you could make the case to play some of these guys. But as it stands right now, this looks to be an easy fade for me.
Yeah, I think so too. Obviously if Edwards and McDaniels miss, like a guy like Towns could become a good play, but it's still tough, I think, to pay $9K for him given some of the studs that we have at our disposal tonight. Mangone, Your thoughts, Minnesota and New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like Ian Edwards. I'm a fan of him, but this is not the spot for it with him being questionable. With also this matchup is not an easy one for him. If I had to pick a defender to be just super annoying and be on him, or like a defensive team, this is probably not the greatest matchup. I could argue Pelicans could maybe beat this Timberwolves team in a playoff series, right? It's not a good matchup. So I don't like Ant. If he's out, yeah, I'm going to like some options, but we just don't have that information. And then when it comes to the Pelicans, if you look at this team right now, I just don't know if I can get there with some of these Pelicans options. I mean, Zion at 8-1. I've said this, DC. I'm not playing him at 8K right now. He's not doing anything for me. If at 8K he gets me 45, I got other options that could do well. So I don't need him. It's just I don't think he's a good play right now. Valanciunas I rarely play. So, yeah, let's just move on to the next game.
All right, we'll move on to Chicago and Milwaukee. Before we do, just a reminder, hit the like button if you haven't yet done so. It does help us out, allows us to bring you guys these shows free of charge each and every day. And then hit the subscribe so you don't miss all the content we've got over on the Run Pure Sports channel. All right, let's get to Chicago and Milwaukee. Zach LaVine remains out for the Chicago Bulls. That's the biggest piece of news in this one. Alex Caruso is questionable. Pat Connaughton remains out for the Milwaukee Bucks. AP, we've been kind of on this Kobe White train ever since Zach LaVine went down. He's been treating us good. 43, 55, 40, 41 fantasy points. And a good matchup here, too, against Milwaukee, who can't defend point guards very well. So I think he's interesting. Talk to us about White, the Bulls, and the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Caruso is a true questionable. I think there's a good chance he doesn't play tonight. So if he doesn't, then that's just more for Kobe White. Ayo Dosunmu would probably slide into the starting lineup, and assuming the game stays within 15 points, they're going to run a tight rotation. That being the big question mark there. Can this game stay close? So there's a few spots here that they don't project really well, but you're going to get a tight rotation. So we talked about that with the Heat. If Kyle Lowry's out, obviously the Hornets, not a game that on paper looks that appealing, but you're going to have a tight rotation. The same can be said here about the Bulls. So that's where in tournaments, I think you can get creative with projections, get overweight on some of these guys. And DC, you hit the nail on the head. To play Kobe White over the last few days, you've had to get aggressive with his projection, something that we've talked about, and he hasn't disappointed. The price tag is elevated, but you're going to get 38, 39 minutes from him in a really good matchup against Dame and Malik Beasley. This backcourt might be one of the worst defensively out there in the league. I mean, it's just Giannis holding things together. I mean, he's just so good at what he does, him and Brook Lopez. So they're good at limiting things, but outside of that, when it comes to the backcourt, it's tough. And what does Kobe White do really well? And what we talked about against Charlotte and against the Spurs, the dude can hit threes. I mean, he's 5 for 7 against the Spurs. He was 8 for 13 against the Pelicans. This is going to be a spot where he should launch a ton of threes here. The pace is going to be good. I have a bet on the over in this game. I think we see a lot of points. I think this total is way wrong. This is my most confident bet of the night. And I'm a guy that I hate Bulls overs. I really do. But it's a function of, I think Caruso sits. I think we get more shooting from Kobe White. Hopefully DeRozan can hit some mid-range buckets. And then on the other side, the Bucks offense has been fine. They just, defensively haven't been getting done. So, and on the Bucks side, I prefer Luka, I prefer Embiid and Jokic over Giannis tonight. So I will most likely be under on Giannis and Dame.
Yeah, I'm guessing Giannis is going to have really low ownership, although I guess the position eligibility helps him a little bit. Yeah, Mangone, looking at some of the on-court, off-court stuff for if you take LaVine and Caruso, who's obviously questionable off the court, Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan both get tremendous bumps. So I'm looking at this is over 176 minutes this year in terms of per 36 minute plus minus with those guys off the court. For DeRozan, it's plus 12 fantasy points per 36. and Kobe White is plus 15 fantasy points per 36. So those guys in a pretty good spot here. I actually don't mind playing them together because I think they both have to have good games for Chicago to keep this close enough for them both to get their minutes ceiling. So I'm interested here in White and DeRozan if especially Caruso misses. Obviously, you could play Giannis on the other side if you want to get a low stud into your lineup. I've got some interest in this game. It does partly depend on Caruso. For me, your thoughts, Mangone, Chicago and Milwaukee.
Yeah, I'll start with I'm not really interested in Milwaukee for a lot of the points that AP brought up. So no Milwaukee for me. When it comes to the Chicago side of the ball, yeah, you guys bring up great points with how good these guys have been. I'm sure DeMar DeRozan is still a good option on FanDuel. He's been an absolutely great play basically throughout this whole stretch. So I'll definitely be playing him over there a little bit. Kobe White at 7.3K. Listen, it feels gross, but he's been getting the job done. I definitely wouldn't argue against it. I have not been on that train as much, but if you fall on him, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. So for me, it's really the guards. And also, I love the matchup of targeting Damian Lillard and the Milwaukee Bucks guards. Something that I feel like I've made a lot of money off of so far this year. It's gone really well. I'm going to keep doing it. So I'm interested in these Bulls options. Like you said, it's really DeRozan and Kobe White mainly for me.
Yeah, it's a pretty good spot for Giannis. I'll say that as well. So I think a little game stack here could be in my future. Let's move to San Antonio and Houston. Houston, pretty big favorites in this one. 9-point favorites at home, 223.5 total. Injury news, Tari Eason is questionable for Houston. And then looks like pretty much healthy teams here. We've seen San Antonio mix up their lineup. Wembanyama came through for me in that last start against Chicago where he got the start at center. I think for the first time all year, AP, they've moved Zach Collins to the bench. I assume they're going to stick with that, but not 100% sure. I do like Wembanyama certainly better at center, but I don't know if this is the matchup to go to him necessarily. Talk to us, AP, San Antonio and Houston.
Yeah, they changed it up, but it did not help them from a team standpoint losing to the Bulls, unfortunately for Wemby. I think it's more of I don't think it's like a Wemby problem. I just think it's a Spurs problem right now. They have issues to figure out. They're making big investments in guys that I don't know if I would, like Devin Vassell. We have yet, like, this dude got an insane contract and he's not like a proven guy. I think he's talented, but to pay him that kind of money, like, didn't he get paid more than, definitely got paid more than Jordan Poole. I can't even remember how much Jordan Poole, made. And I'm not trying to make a case for Jordan Poole, but at least the guy has a championship, was on a, championship team. That hasn't translated, but still it's insane. Some of the contracts these guys are getting, but Wemby is a phenomenal tournament play. 8-8, just too cheap. The guy, I like this role for him. The usage is insane. Steals, blocks, upside, 20 rebounds against the Bulls. Not a good rebounding team at all. So Wemby definitely always in play for me in tournaments. I love that you can play him at the power forward spot, center spot. So very flexible position eligibility there. And then Şengün. We love bigs against the Spurs now, but with this change, I'm a little hesitant. I want to watch this game as well because, moving Wemby to true 5 could make things a little bit more difficult for big. So I'm more so excited to watch this matchup against Wemby and Şengün down low. Also curious to see what you guys think about that because Şengün at 8-9 against the Spurs, like on paper, seems to be like a really, really, really good play. But matchup wise, if you're trying to navigate around Wemby, a little bit difficult there. Fred VanVleet, we talk about all the time. Minutes upside is just really rock solid. And then Jalen Green, in the right matchup, he's been playing great basketball. So guys that I have interest in, and then Jabari Smith as well. The only guy here I just never play is Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, good call. Mangone's favorite player, Dylan Brooks. I'm sure he's not on him either tonight. Mangone, your thoughts on Houston and San Antonio?
I'm not on him. When I've seen him at 4-5 on FanDuel, like he's been dirt cheap. I've been like, the stocks are there, sure, but I haven't played him much for sure. I love Fred VanVleet in this spot. I think it's an elite spot for him. We always like playing guards against the Spurs. I do also think the Wemby at the 5 stuff, it gives the opportunity for the pace to even push more with the Spurs, right? Like I just think it's a great spot for him. Houston has played at a slower pace this season than in the past, but we want to play slow-paced teams in up-and-pace spots. So I really like Fred VanVleet here. Fred VanVleet will definitely be one of the point guards I'm going to have a lot of exposure to. Şengün, I like him at his price too. I think he's worth it. The only reason I don't love Wemby in this spot is, and I think he's in play on pretty much every slate when he's low-owned, and I'm assuming he's going to be low-owned, but I will say I don't like targeting Houston. I absolutely hate doing that. That's one thing I'm a little worried about, but when I run my FanDuel teams, am I going to X Wembanyama if I get 4%? No, of course I'm not going to do that. It's Victor Wembanyama. Low percentage, he could definitely go off. So those are the 3 plays I'm looking at mainly in this game.
All right, that's San Antonio and Houston. 2 more games to talk about. We do jump ahead a couple hours here for the 10 p.m. Eastern time window. Only game that starts this time, Brooklyn and Sacramento. Sacramento favored by 4.5, 236 total in this one. Ben Simmons, Lonnie Walker remain out for Brooklyn. And on the Sacramento side, really the only piece of news we're waiting for is Malik Monk, who's questionable due to an illness for this one, AP. Should be a fast-paced game. Should have a lot of points in this one. Brooklyn, Sacramento, what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, the pace is going to be really nice. We have a tight rotation from the Nets side, but everyone's like priced where they should be priced. Mikal Bridges, 8.5, like Cam Thomas and Dinwiddie, both over 7K. So like my kind of standard approach to a situation like this is I'm usually limiting my exposure to Brooklyn to like one player on a big slate like this. And like I could see a Cam Thomas in a tournament, like landing in one of my builds. But outside of that, despite the good pace, I don't see myself getting a ton here, just because like when Cam Thomas was out, Dinwiddie was far more attractive. He had the more raw scoring upside. Now it's like I would rather take the 300 discount for Cam Thomas. You forego the peripheral stats in exchange for more raw scoring upside. So that's kind of the risk there. I don't see any as like a mandatory play. And then Fox and Sabonis, I'm both under on. Keegan Murray 5'8" is okay, but I'm not too excited about anything on either side in this game.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Everyone just seems kind of priced where they should be. And on a 13-game slate, we're looking for players who are underpriced. Obviously, that's the name of the game in DFS. Mangone, your thoughts, Brooklyn, Sacramento.
Yeah, Brooklyn, Sacramento. I will say, I think pretty much every single slate I want to like De'Aaron Fox. I think the game's going to be competitive because that fourth quarter run he gets is just absurd, right? And the ceiling he has, it's just like he has that ability to get 60 plus, and I can't ignore it. So I don't mind Fox at 9.6. I don't like Sabonis at 9.7. Mikal Bridges has been someone I've been interested in a lot, and I think in this up and pace matchup, I will like him. Probably more so on FanDuel specifically. Cam Thomas, he's been frustrating lately, but this is a good spot where he could have that big game. So I think on FanDuel, I'd make a case for Cam Thomas over there. Malik Monk at 6.1, I think could have a good match for Xana. I think this game's going to be competitive and close, and that's what I want Malik Monk in those kind of games. So for me, it's really those guys that we talked about. Not a lot of good value within this game to get to, just more so some of these studs and mid-tier options that I don't mind mix and matching in tournaments.
Makes sense. Let's get to the last game of the night then. Portland and the LA Clippers here. Clippers favored by 13. I think biggest favorites on the slate. 220.5 total. Portland remains pretty banged up. Going to be missing Jeremy Grant with the concussion. And then DeAndre Ayton and Malcolm Brogdon both looks like kind of true game time decisions. They both miss a little bit of time. I kind of lean that at least one of them will sit. We'll see. Obviously, last game of the night, we won't have that information most likely until most of these games have locked, but it does open up some things for Portland if they do sit. And then the Clippers, surprisingly, still healthy, all four. They're main guys. I continue to avoid them for the most part when they're healthy, but certainly the matchup is there in this one, AP. If you do want to play Clippers, it would be a good spot to do so. Your thoughts on Portland and the LA Clippers?
Yeah, I mean, they should take care of business here. Like I will say, if you get Brogdon and Aiden in there with a healthier Blazers team, maybe they keep things more competitive. And what that would do for me is make me more interested in the Clippers side. Paul George or Leonard, or James Harden. But I don't like Kawhi Leonard at 8-1 is somewhat intriguing. If I finish with the lineup with him in there, I'm fine with it. But Simons is priced up now. Brogdon priced up. Not playing any of those guys. Not playing Ayton at 6'9". Norman Powell off the bench. I love these spots for him. And, Glock's going to be giving me crap too, talking about these bench players. But these are just like Norman Powell's playing 29, 31, 27 minutes, easy matchup. I could see him cooking off the bench. I don't love him or anything like that. I think it's just a fringe tournament play at best. So 4-6, not a bad price tag, assuming he gets 30 minutes tonight.
All right. Mangone, your thoughts, Portland and the Clippers.
Yeah, Portland and the Clippers it's not really a game I think I'm going to see myself getting to. I did talk about there's some interesting contrarian spend up forwards, and Kawhi Leonard has not been owned and had a pretty good game the other day against a Utah team. It's similar kind of spot where against Portland where you expect one of these guys to absolutely cook. The problem is, which one is it, right? Is it Paul George? Is it going to be Kawhi Leonard? That's just one of the issues that I have here. But I think there's just better studs, and let's just fade this game or play showdown for it. I don't know if this is the showdown slate one. Yeah, it's probably the showdown slate one. So maybe we'll just play some showdown for this game.
Yeah, it makes sense for me on Portland and the Clippers. That's all 13 games. Let's get to the plays of the day. AP, we will start with you. Your what is it? The gentleman's play of the day? AP, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think I'm taking yours today, but we will see. It's Bojan Bogdanovic from the Pistons. 6'5", my play of the day.
All right, we got Bojan Bogdanovic. Let's go over to you, Mangone, your Snyder Soldier for the day.
Yes, my Snyder Soldier. I had it, and now I'm blanking on. Oh, it is who it was. It was Fred VanVleet. I talked about before. I want to target the Spurs with point guards, and I want to do it with Fred VanVleet. I think this is an elite spot for him, and hopefully Wembanyama can have a pretty good game to keep it close enough so I can get that 50 burger from old Freddie VanVleet.
There we got VanVleet, Bogdanovic. I'm going to give two. I'm going to give the combination with the Bulls of Kobe White and DeMar DeRozan. Both put up 50 against Milwaukee. Keep it close, working together. Hopefully Caruso sits to make those plays even better. All right, that'll do it for this show. Obviously, we've got Up to Lock with the guys coming up momentarily, and all the content over at Run Pure Sports, football, basketball, all the sports going on right now. Really, really fun time of year. Join the Winner's Circle. Use promo code GIBLETS44. We'll get you 44% off your first monthly or weekly payment. That'll do it for us. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.